All right, what's up, guys? This is Swagger. This is my first video I'm making for this channel that I'm starting, and I think this is a very, very good topic for the future of our game, right? This is going to be basically how to run a successful tournament, and I'm not going to be covering everything. This is just going to be basically the days leading up to the tournament, and these are going to be covering the responsibilities of the floor judge, head judge, and tournament organizer. All right, so first off, getting right into it. So pre-tournament. So this is days leading up to the event, right? It's not necessarily day of yet, but as the tournament organizer, your first job is to build a staff, and that's really important. You're starting with your head judge, your floor judges, and then your scorekeeper, aka the little computer person. The head judge is the most important part because you need to make sure you find somebody that you can really rely on, really depend on. You know he's going to get it right. You know they're going to do everything in their abilities to make sure the tournaments run successfully and they have like the right things in mind. Sometimes you can even like pass off the responsibility of hiring floor judges and the scorekeeper to the head judge. Sometimes the head judge and the TO are the same person. For example, I was a tournament organizer for RBETLA, and then I was also the head judge. And I didn't pick my floor judges, but I met with them. They're very competent and dependable people, and it was a pleasure working with them. All right, so that's first things first, right? You need to make sure you're taking care of your staff. Second of all, you need to make sure in the upcoming day or the coming days up before the tournament, you have to refamiliarize yourself with Konami documents, and that goes for all three of you guys. So whether you're a floor judge, head judge, tournament organizer, it's really important to cover tournament policy and then fractions and penalties policy. And you can find that right over here. If you just Google a Konami tournament organized play, you can find this right here, and both of these links are just two things that you really should read. It's really important to take this seriously, because you have to you can't just assume oh, I'm a judge, I've done this a million times before, I know what policy is, because it's just something it's nice to go over again, because you never know what you might miss or what might not be at the top of your mind when you're running a tournament, right? So all of these things, very important, crucial things to keep in mind for the tournament. And me personally, anytime I'm running a tournament, I make a spreadsheet. I just open up Google Sheets and I make a spreadsheet, and that's going to cover all my player infractions. So anything that happened throughout the tournament, illegal activation, drew an extra card, anything at all, didn't side out a card. I like doing that. So, and all of my head judge, I'm the head judge, but my floor judges, my scorekeeper, and my tournament organizer, they're all going to have access to that spreadsheet, right? And then, so you don't have to rely on that person that receives an infraction. You don't have to ask them, have you received a penalty for this earlier in this tournament? And they say no, and then you look back and you compare and contrast a couple rounds later, and you find out, yeah, actually that player lied. He should have gotten a DQ. This way you get to see in real time, has this player received any penalties before? You're still going to ask them, but you double check with your own resource. And so that's a very good thing to keep in mind. And then the last key thing is you're going to touch up on the rulings from that era. And this is primarily for the judges, and this goes whether you're judging advanced or you're judging time wizard. Me personally, I'm only judging time wizard, and you have to check with your tournament organizer, is this going to be current erratas and policy, or is this going to be rulings from that event, right? So again, another example, I was RBT LA head judge, and we used rulings from SJC Edison back in 2010. So I had to make sure to cover all of that. Like, obviously, it's impossible to cover literally everything, but it's very important to be in tune with your locals. You can find out what are like common interactions or that players will have questions for. So you make sure you have that like right off the top of your head. So that's really, really important too. So making sure you have that. It's unmatched. Okay, so now we're moving on to the day of the tournament, right? So day of the tournament, first thing you're doing, obviously, besides the like submitting deck lists and checking deck lists and stuff, that goes without saying. These things are just as important, if not more important. So as a head judge, you're going to want to have a judge meeting, right? And this meeting is going to be with the floor judges, and the tournament organizer obviously is welcome to be there as well, but you're going to be talking to them and you're going to be reinforming them of all the protocols. You're going to be letting them know how they're going to be taking a judge call, how the winner is going to be reported, whether the players are going to need to raise their hand, if they're going to need to submit a bout sheet, if they're going to highlight their name. It varies and it depends on how big the event is, but you want to make sure everybody's on the same page for that. And then end of match procedure, right? Are we using end of match procedure from 2010 where there's going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or are we doing 45-minute rounds with end of phase, right? It's very, very important that everybody is on the same page as that, because if it's 45 minutes end of phase, once that timer gets down to the last minute, you're going to want all of your judges to be like really vigilant and making sure nobody gets cheated by a player continuing play once the timer has ended and going into the next phase and creating a he said, she said situation. Like, those are situations we absolutely want to nip in the bud. All right. But judge calls. All right. So this has been a pretty big thing in recent history. Right. So I actually have a whole different doc for this as well. All right. So, I think if everybody implemented this protocol that I use, there will be a lot less feelings of unhappiness after a judge call, right? Because at the end of the day, I think competitive Yu-Gi-Oh players and casual Yu-Gi-Oh players as well, right? Anybody who goes to a tournament, at the end of the day, you just want to know that your record was a complete result of how you did and how you performed and how your deck performed. You don't want to ever finish a tournament and be like, yeah, this loss was because of a judge. That's the last thing anybody wants. Like, no judges want that. No tournament organizer wants that. No players want that. It's important to get it right. And I think we're going to be able to get it right if everybody just watches this video and does this and follows this step by step. All right, so to even start a judge call, right, it starts with a disagreement between the two players, right? There's a disagreement. They can't come to a conclusion mutually, so they call a judge, right? And the floor judge responds. And it's imperative that the floor judge is the first person to take a call. The head judge should never be the first person to take a call, right? So as the floor judge approaches, he should have a notepad in his hands. I supply everybody with a clipboard and paper and pen. Not just pen, you're going black pen, red pen, and highlighter. And before anything happens, the floor judge is going to note a couple things to themselves. They're going to look at how much time is left in the round, because if this judge call takes longer than a minute, we're going to be giving an extension, right? So we're noting how much time is in the round. We're noting whose turn is it, and we're noting how many cards are in each player's hand. Now, this is definitely not standard. right? I don't think every judge is trained by Konami to do this. But this is very beneficial. This takes no time at all. Like, you just look at how much time, whose turn it is, and how many cards each player has. You just write it down. You don't have to ask them, or like, if you're able to see that, it's better to ask them. But so there's no like, oh, I didn't see he had an extra card in his hand, right? And you just write it down. And you don't have to explain why. But the reason why is because sometimes these rulings take a little bit of time, especially if there ends up being an appeal, right? If there ends up being an appeal, the floor judge will leave the table. They're going to leave the premise. They're going to go up to the head judge and communicate with them. And this opens up a time frame where somebody can cheat, right? And I've heard all types of stories, and I just want to make sure I'm avoiding that for everybody, right? So we know how many cards are in each player's hand, so nobody adds a card or discards a card. Sometimes players like to replay the situation, and they're going to end up like a card that went to the graveyard ends up back in their hand, right? And we just want to avoid that. So it's really, really important. I think that's a very small thing we can add, but it'll prevent people from cheating. All right. So after we make those notes, floor judge is now going to listen to both players, and we start with the turn player. And it's very important that it's uninterrupted, right? If there's a disagreement in what happened, it's very easy for the opponent, so the non-turn player, to like interrupt and say like, that's not what happened. But it's important to get both of their stories straight, especially if they conflict. It's very important to find out what the turn player is saying happened, and then what the other player is saying. If it's just an interaction of a card, right, where there's no he said, she said, it's just like, oh, I have Necro Valley, my opponent has Treeborn Frog. Can he activate Treeborn Frog? He's trying to activate, but my copy of Necro Valley says is errated, and it would mean Treeborn Frog is negated, right? So if it's just that, then there's not going to be any disagreement, and you can just issue your ruling and explain why. All right, and I think this explain why is kind of overlooked. Obviously, you can't say anything as a floor judge that would be considered coaching, but you can explain game mechanics, and you can explain how a card works, and you can like even help them with problem solving card text to show why a card works, right? So once this ruling is issued, only two situations can happen. Either one, the easy situation where the players accept the ruling and play continues. If that ruling took longer than a minute, then you will give a time extension. And again, it's important to note that the time extension cannot be longer than how much time was left in the round. So say 2 minutes were left in the round, and this ruling took 4 minutes. You don't give 4 minute time extension, you just give the 2 minutes. All right. Second scenario, players do not accept the ruling and they appeal to the head judge. All right. So this is where the floor judges need to make sure they're doing their job correctly, right? So floor judge is going to let them know, perfect, I'm going to go call over the head judge for right now, and they can issue a final ruling. So they'll go meet with the head judge, and then that meeting before the head judge comes over, right, you're just gonna like tell them, hey, on table 36 we have a ruling dispute, and we're gonna give background information on the judge call. It's like, hey, player A has Necro Valley, player B has Treeborn Frog. They're asking, player A is asking because he does not believe Treeborn Frog should be able to activate. I gave him the ruling that that's not the errata, that's not the card text of Necro Valley during that format, but he would like to appeal as is his right. Okay, cool. So you give a little Spark Notes thing. Like sometimes it's just very, very easy, like a ruling dispute. Sometimes it's a little bit more difficult, like a he said, she said. Those are going to be rough. And those are going to be something that we will also note in our spreadsheet, right? Because if, like, I've seen outrageous things in he said, she said. I've seen my opponent rolled a 3, and then he said, no, he didn't, and he rolled again. Like, I've seen outrageous things like that, and then we're like, okay, making a note of this, and if this happens again, like, if this ends up being a trend, first of all, we're going to keep our eyes on this player, and then second of all, if this ends up being a trend, like penalties can ensue. So it's very, very important to make sure, like, anytime there's a he said, she said, that we write it down for both players. Okay, so afterwards, head judge meets with both players. Floor judge follows. And again, I cannot express enough that it is so important, so vital for the floor judge to follow. The floor judge needs to be there for the initial meeting to make sure nothing else changes, right? So head judge gets there, notes a few things. Whose turn is it? How many cards are in each player's hand? Floor judge is double checking to ensure this information is consistent with what they've noted. If cards, the amount of cards are different in each player's hand or in one of the player's hands, we're going to have a situation, right? We're going to find out what's going on. This was not a mistake. What's going on? Why is this different? Right? If they continued play, right, now it's somebody else's turn. It's like, all right, we're just accepting the game state now. What's going on? Like, why did you appeal? All right, so after noting what we need to note, right, we're gonna state the interaction in question. We're gonna basically make a statement on what we believe to be the issue, right? So in this example that in this scenario that I've created, right, I'm gonna be like, all right, turn player is attempting to activate Treeborn Frog's effect. Non-turn player is trying to say Necro Valley is going to negate this effect. Is that accurate? And we're making sure that that our understanding of the situation is correct, right? For the bigger tournaments, like, we may have gone to the wrong table first, right? And this is a different appeal, and we just want to double check, right? Now, we issue the ruling and explain why. And there are no arguments here. Head judge rulings are final. Now, that being said, it is very important as a head judge that you get this correct. You get it right. There was an instance at the NAWCQ this year for the Ultimate Time Wizard side event, where round 8, the head judge got it wrong, right? And it was not my match. It was the match directly to my right, and I pleaded that guy's case for him to the head judge, and the head judge wouldn't listen, right? So I think the most important thing is getting it right. Like, everybody's afraid to admit that there's a possibility that they're not sure, and they're forced into a situation where they have to guess. We don't have to do that. After we have that meeting with the floor judge, if the floor judge is like, yeah, I'm not sure, I just issued a ruling based on what I think it is, and you're like, I'm not sure either, this has never happened, it doesn't hurt to look it up, right? To make sure you get it right. Like, if we have a reliable source that we're able to use to get it correct, I think every judge should put their ego or pride aside and just get it right. All right. So it's because you are the final word, it is so important to get it right. All right. Any infractions resulting in a game loss. So say it was an irreparable game state because somebody drew a card and shuffled their hand. That's irreparable game state, and if they appealed that ruling by the floor judge and you have to issue it and it results in a game loss, there will be no time extension. Okay. And the last thing is any other result that will receive a time extension equal to the time in the round that has passed since the floor judge took the call. So that's kind of what I was mentioning before, that if during the ruling or appeal process their match has gone into time, they will not receive that extra time as well. It'll just be the beginning of the call, from when the floor judge got there to the expiration of the round. You also do not give time extensions for time that the players were waiting for you. So probably not going to be a problem for a smaller event, like probably literally just the UTWs and maybe RBETs, but I feel like my RBET staff was amazing, and like I had floor judges literally running to judge calls, and they were awesome. And like that's what we have to do, because in reality, like as judges, we're public servants for the day, right? Like we're doing this for other people. All right. And then afterwards, so after the ruling's been issued and play continues or a penalty was issued, now we address the floor judge. If they were correct, this will boost confidence, right? So this is like you're backing them up, right? And if they were incorrect, this is a learning moment. But either way, we want everybody to end this judge call feeling positive with new knowledge learned and confidence built. And I feel like that's something that we lack sometimes, right? Like we want to make sure the players feel good. Obviously, if a player misplayed because they were not informed or not knowledgeable about a particular interaction beforehand, that sucks, right? But we want to make sure that we explained it in a way that they're never going to make that mistake again, because they've learned something new. They've learned a new mechanic. If the judge was wrong, you don't want to shame them, right? You want to like build on that, like as a learning moment, and teach them why something works the way it does, right? Because eventually these floor judges are either gonna stop judging, right? And which we don't want that to be the case, or they're going to progress to a potential head judge one day, or they're going to stay floor judges, right? And they need to be knowledgeable, and they need to make sure that they pass that on, right? So I think this is really, really important to run our judge protocols in this manner, because this leaves little to no room for any errors. Like there's no way, like obviously he said she saids are always tough, and like you're not going to be able to get that right, because somebody could just be lying to you and you won't know unless you witnessed it yourself. You won't know. This is just something that you have to like note, and your entire judge staff will be able to see that on the spreadsheet. And if that player is ever involved in another he said she said, then okay, well, we have this previous knowledge. Was this, it's the exact same situation? Interesting. All right, now we can be able to move forward in a manner that's gonna progress our tournament, right? And I just think it's really important that we follow this protocol from now on. So I hope everybody adopts that. All right. As crazy as it is, now the tournament has started, right? As the head judge, we're doing the introductory announcements. We're introducing ourselves, making sure players feel comfortable calling for a judge. You never want a newer player to feel intimidated or feel like they can't call a judge. Obviously, the veterans, you're going to hear them shout judge at the top of their lungs. But you want to make sure that even the newer players or the non-competitive players don't ever feel intimidated into not calling a judge, right? So you're going to let them know how to call a judge. You're going to tell them raise their hand, shout out loudly, and one of your floor judges will go and assist them. You can, if there's any like really relevant rulings that like maybe before the tournament quite a few people came up to you and asked you about, you can say these rulings and to the whole room, and that'll save you guys at least a few judge calls throughout the day if you just do take care of that right in the beginning. All right, so next you're going to be announcing how long the round will be, so whether it'll be the 40 minutes or the 45, and the end of match procedure. So if you're going 40 minutes, you're going turns 0 through 5, and then checking life. And if you're doing 45-minute rounds, you're going to be doing end of phase. This also changes a little bit based on whether we're in Swiss or Top Cut. So if this is like a 2-day tournament and you're doing these announcements and it's Top Cut, you're going to let them know how end of match procedure works, because there will no longer be the option for draws. Okay, and then lastly, you're thanking attendees, tournament staff, and then any sponsors that you have. All right, now your duties during the tournament. Floor judge and head judge, you are accepting judge calls, and it's really important to go over the Konami policy and find out what questions can be answered and what questions can't be answered. And like the obvious questions that can't be answered are hypotheticals or anything that can be seen as coaching. Like, for example, like players will be like, can I activate this card in my hand? And you can't answer that. You can like do a blanket statement where like spell cards can be activated or during main phase 1, main phase 2, stuff like that. But like you can't, you don't want to give any information away to either player that involve cards that are not public knowledge. All right, and then what questions can be answered? Obviously, the most common thing are rulings for cards that are currently interacting. And it's important that I note that I say currently, because we want to avoid these hypotheticals. All right, like what would happen if I attack this card? Like, will he be able to get his effect? We're not answering those questions. Okay. All right. Secondly, big duty. Make sure match results are reported in a timely manner. There's actually in the Konami policy something that says if the match result is not reported within a few minutes of time being called, obviously with the exception of players that are in time, a penalty will be assessed. So for smaller tournaments, this doesn't really happen, or we're able to, like, if a match slip gets lost or somebody forgot to report, we can just shout out, table 20, X player versus Y player, who won? And it's important to make sure, first of all, you want to avoid those. So I like telling the players in the beginning that to raise your hand when a match is concluded, so I can confirm with the winner and the loser. Sometimes it feels like a little bit of a needle, like you just lost and you're hearing the judge just say, confirming you lost, right? This player beat you. It's a little bit of a needle, but this way we can make sure that the results are accurate and nobody just like highlighted their name, or both players left and one player is trying to, be scummy and be like, actually, I won this duel, or I won this match. And then it's going to set everything back. Like, player either doesn't realize that the wrong result was submitted and they play the remainder of their tournament like that, and then they realize a couple of rounds later and it's too late, or they realize and we have to repair because we have the wrong information. All right, so also during the tournament, we're keeping an eye on potential slow play or illegal plays. And we're just walking around. As a head judge, sometimes you're going to be walking around and somebody, like a match close to you, is going to call out for you. And it's just really important that your floor judges are on top of it, that they come and they interact first, because you don't want to give a final ruling first. Like you want to be able to give everybody the appeal process because it is their right, and they might feel slighted not having that appeal, even though you are the person that they would be appealing to. Players feel just some type of way about that, so we can just avoid that situation and just let a floor judge handle it at first, and if they choose to appeal, we're right there. Okay, so then keeping an eye on the clock and give reminders of the time left in the round. So like what I do, I set timers in my phone as a head judge, and I'm announcing at 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and 3 minutes how much time is left in the round, right? And you want to stay consistent, because you don't want to do it sometimes and not do it the other times, because it doesn't feel professional. So you want to make sure that's consistent. And then lastly, we're reporting any infractions and or penalties that were given out during the tournament on the spreadsheet. And that's just to make sure that your judge staff feel like they're all on the same page. That needs to get updated immediately. Sometimes you're going to have a line of people that have rulings or appeals that you need to go get through, but it's really important at least to note it onto your clipboard and paper, so you can make sure you transfer that information onto the spreadsheet so all of your judges have it. Okay. So I want to end this video with just a few things to remember, right? First of all, you need to stay professional. Like, sometimes people are going to be upset with you. You're not anybody's friend. You are a judge, right? And sometimes your friends or people that you know are going to call for a judge, and you have to make sure you stay professional. And if people yell at you because you're doing your job, it's gonna happen. Obviously, like if anything's like, if they're actually like physically yelling at you or like being threatening towards you, then okay, the DQ's coming. But if they're just like arguing with you, right, because they're arguing their case, like that's just passion for the game, right? They're not cheating. They're not doing anything that with malicious intent. They're just arguing and pleading their case. Like, I feel that the head judge that I argued with at the North American World Championship qualifier, I'm afraid that he took it like I was coming after him, and I wasn't. I was upset as a person who judges at the highest level for Edison. I was upset that a head judge can get a ruling so wrong, but I can't let that cloud myself. Like, at the end of the day, I'm just trying to make sure this Gladiator Beast player doesn't lose in a very, very key round, literally round 8, top tables, because of an incorrect ruling. Because now he goes home, like, he lost that game as a result of it, and now he goes home wondering what if. Like, it's not even like what if I played differently. It's like, what if the ruling was just correct, right? And that's the worst thing to do, where it's like, I know a lot of people like will anecdotally say like, oh, there's nothing I could have done, I was going to lose this game. But most of the time, there's something different you could have done. You could have made a different read. You could play different cards. There's something you could have done, right? But like, when a judge gets something wrong, there's literally nothing you could have done, right? You played optimally, and the judge just gave you a bad ruling. And as of right now, that's a part of the game. But I think that's a human error that we can eliminate, and something that we will never have to worry about again. But we just need to make sure that we're getting better as floor judges, as head judges, as tournament organizers, as players. We need to make sure we're getting better. Okay, so second thing, set ego and pride aside, get it right. I kind of covered this earlier. Sometimes people are just afraid to admit they were wrong. And that's another human error that I think we can eliminate, right? If you don't know something, look it up. Look it up. This format is that I've been playing is 14 years old. Almost every single interaction's happened before. It's very, very unlikely for this to be a completely new situation. Look it up. You don't have to look it up in front of people. As the head judge, you don't know something. First of all, we should. But if we don't, okay, learning moment. Now we're going to learn something new. Look it up. Issue the right ruling. And don't ruin anybody's tournament experience, right? And lastly, remember what's important, why you do this. Okay, at the end of the day, you want everybody to enjoy this tournament. Not everybody will top, but everybody can have a pleasant experience. We do what we do for them, right? Like, sure, you might be getting paid a little bit, but let's be real, judges don't get paid what we should for our time and for how much work we put in. But that's not the only reason we do this. Like, I'm a tournament organizer because there's not that many tournaments going on in my region at the moment. So I literally created a whole tournament series so I can create competition, right? And then that ends up feeding back into me, and now the level of competition has increased and I want to be a better player, right? So, but in order for that to have happened, I had to be a tournament organizer, and I had to be the best tournament organizer that I can be. Not everybody's going to be happy like with you. Like, people will find a way to complain. But as long as you're satisfied with the work that you put in, and you're satisfied with what you've created and what you've done, that's the most important thing. Like, you need to be honest with yourself and like, did I do a good job? Was there anything that I could have improved on? And if the answer was like, I need to be better, it's like, well, it's time to get better. And the only way we could have learned that about ourselves is by actually doing it and going out there and just doing our best, right? So many tournaments that I've hosted already, and at the end of the tournament, people are thanking me for putting this tournament on, or people are thanking me, and they're like, they didn't even top. Some of these players didn't even top, and they're thanking me because they had a great experience. You know, they liked the tournament structure that I put on. They liked the prize pool. They thought it was an innovative or new take on running a tournament, right? And I'm always trying to stay fresh. Like, I've done obviously the standard regular Edison tournaments. I've done a tournament where it was Duelist Kingdom and you had star chips, and the amount of star chips you played for was randomized at the beginning of every round. And so, like, different rounds were more important than the others, right? I've ran a best of one tournament. I've ran a single elimination tournament with buyback. I'm going to be running a Highlander tournament, right? Like, I'm doing all these things where I'm just thinking about the player base and them having a good time. Because if you do this and you get all this positive feedback, other people, other stores, other tournament organizers will create tournaments for the future, and now you'll be able to get to play in those too. And it just like is this constant like machine that just keeps rolling out bigger tournaments, better tournaments, and better players. And I think at the end of the day, that's what we all want. Like, nobody, I mean, maybe, I don't know, maybe people just want to win and have like a bye every round, but that's not me. Like, I want to play every single round. I want to do the best of my abilities and be the best player that I can, and I want to try to win using those abilities, right? And I think this is a very, very good starter to getting the entire community just more knowledgeable about this process, about what judges should expect of themselves and what players should expect of the judges, so we can be better. And at the end of the day, we just want to be better. So please, I would really appreciate it if you like, comment, subscribe. I know this is my first video, but I think this is going to be a very, very good resource for everybody moving forward. Like, I legitimately believe everybody that is ever going to be involved in tournament staff should watch this video like a week before the tournament, and just touching up on all of this. So please share this with your friends. I'd really, really appreciate it, especially everybody that like I get to meet at events. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. So hope you guys like this. Let me know if this is something that you guys would like to continue like hearing about if this kind of content is something you like hearing about. But there's going to be a whole lot of different things on this channel. So hope to hear from you guys soon. Thank you very much. Peace.